Razor-thin majorities in Congress, the Democrats cannot afford to lose many votes from within their own ranks if they want this ambitious agenda to pass. Well, in a separate vote, Congress is expected to approve new temporary government funding that will tide over the US until December and stave off a government shutdown when current funding expires at midnight tonight. And then there's another battle in Congress. Democrats and Republicans are continuing to squabble over raising the US debt ceiling, or else risk a catastrophic default in mid-October. Well, France 24's Kedevan Gorjestani joins us now from DC. Let's start by talking about the shutdown, or not. I mean, we're down to the wire. Looks like a shutdown will be avoided, though, doesn't it?
Yes, because the Senate just voted to pass that continuing resolution to continue to fund the government through early December. A vote is 65-35, so a bunch of Republicans joining the Democrats there. It's widely expected that it's going to go very quickly this afternoon to the House, where it will pass, and to Joe Biden's desk for signature before that midnight deadline tonight for that government shutdown. So one crisis averted for Congress, but another one looming. You mentioned it, that debt ceiling. Just a couple of weeks until the United States could reach that debt ceiling. And so the Democrats, that's why you saw this government shutdown vote go down to the wire. It's because the Democrats tried to tie the two, the government funding and the raising of the debt ceiling, to force the Republicans' hands to raise that debt ceiling. The Republicans didn't budge, called the Democrats' bluff. They said, you go ahead and shut down the government, but we will not raise the debt ceiling. So the Democrats were forced to do two separate bills. There is now a bill that passed in the House to raise the debt ceiling, but that is very unlikely to pass in the Senate. The Republicans are dead set against it. They are now forcing the Democrats to try to find a way to raise that debt ceiling without Republican support, and of course, before that mid-October deadline. So the Democrats still with a lot of work ahead, because a government shutdown is one thing, defaulting on a U.S. national debt is a much bigger problem for Congress.
Indeed, and just tell us where we are with regards to President Biden's ambitious plan, that infrastructure plan called Build Back Better. Where does all of this leave that?
Well, for government shutdown and debt ceiling, you have a battle between Democrats and Republicans. For the infrastructure and the spending bill, you have a battle within the Democratic Party between the progressives and the moderates. Basically, to make something very complicated a little bit more simple, there are two bills. One is a bipartisan infrastructure bill, around $1.2 trillion, that the moderates are happy with, that has been negotiated with some Republican support, and that could easily go through the House and the Senate. There is a bigger $3.5 trillion spending bill that has a lot of things inside that have nothing to do with infrastructure. It's a much wider spending bill. That's one that the progressives really want. The progressives have said, without the $3.5 trillion bill, we will not vote for the bipartisan infrastructure bill. But the moderates in the Senate say $3.5 trillion is too much. We will not vote for that one. We want the infrastructure bill, the smaller bill. So those two sides really battling it out. But right now, as things stand, Nancy Pelosi, the House Speaker, has said that she will put that bipartisan infrastructure bill to a vote this afternoon. That's at least the plan right now. She believes that she might still have the votes to pass that bipartisan infrastructure bill, but then there will be some more infighting among Democrats to see if they can pass that much larger $3.5 trillion bill. Both of these bills are extraordinarily important for Joe Biden. These are two big aspects of his agenda, and if they fail, it will be a huge loss for the Biden administration and for his term.